highest performers I've ever been around are extremely confident. But what makes them really unique is they also remain humble. But most importantly, humility is what allows you to remember that no matter how good you get, you can still get better.
What do LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant all have in common except for basketball? Well, the answer is the guest that I brought on today, mindset coach Alan Stein Jr., who has worked with some of the most legendary athletes in the entire world at the highest peak of performance, as well as the ones that are just coming out of high school. And now he works with real estate agents, corporations to help entrepreneurs take their businesses to completely different levels. And in this video, which truly, and I can say this with my hand on my heart, is the most valuable conversation I have ever had on my YouTube channel. Alan today breaks down the 3 things that you need to do if you want to exponentially scale your business as a real estate agent and dominate your competition in your market. Also, at the end of this interview, he breaks down what new agents or struggling agents need to do right now in this market in order to thrive while others are struggling to survive, as well as experienced agents, what they separately need to do if they want to continue to push boundaries and limits and scale their business year over year. You are truly going to be blown away if you apply the strategies that Alan breaks down in this conversation, because not only has he helped some of the greatest athletes to ever exist, but he's also helped some of the top entrepreneurs go from struggling and being broke to multi-millionaires as well. So before getting started, I just want to mention that I will link not only all of Alan's incredible content below, but also his 2 books that are absolutely life-changing. So without further ado, it is my honor and pleasure to bring on my good friend Alan Stein, who is going to blow your mind and completely change your perspective of what it's going to take for you to build the real estate business of your dreams. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another exciting conversation where this is one I've been looking forward to for quite some time now. So I had the pleasure of meeting Alan in Miami at an event that we were both speaking at, and was just blown away by what this guy's done, the people that he's worked with. And you know, I think, Alan, the importance of this conversation is it's what everybody needs to hear, but not maybe what everybody wants to hear. And I think, you know, going into this next 12 months, 24 months with the market being all over the map and being a little bit crazy, there's a lot of people that need to focus on the mindset aspect of it, because that's the only reason why people fail. Everybody thinks it's tips, tricks, tutorials. They don't have support training, but it's not. It's mindset. So, you know, really grateful to have Alan Stein on here today, who's worked with some of the most incredible, you know, legendary athletes and other people in the world. And you've even been on people like Ed Milet's podcast. So, you know, Alan, super grateful to have you here, man.
Oh man, I'm equally excited. I've been counting down the days since we put this on the calendar, and I love the way that you started by talking about the difference between what we need to hear and what we want to hear. And it's always been my assertion that the best coaches, the best trainers, the best teachers, the best friends, the best spouses, the best parents care enough about you to be honest enough to tell you the things that you need to hear. And, you know, it's easy for any of us to find people that will tell us what we want to hear. Like, it's easy to find, you know, the stereotypical yes man, but to have someone that cares enough to tell you the truth, all of us should be, you know, searching to insulate ourselves with those types of people. And I know you've done that, which is one of many reasons you're so successful. So yeah, I love that we can have a really open, honest, courageous, and vulnerable conversation that I think will really help your audience.
100%, man. You know, you hit the nail on the head. So many people, you know, and I think the people that struggle the most surround themselves with cheerleaders, which is they only tell you when things are good. And the ones that, you know, you really need in your life are going to be the ones that tell you when things are good, but they're going to call you out when they see something that's out of character, out of line, not up to your potential or your standards. And, you know, we'll be able to unpack that. But for anybody that might not know, you know, who you are yet, do you want to kind of just explain your story and some of the people that you've worked with and what got you to this amazing point in your career?
Well, I always intentionally navigate the world under the assumption that no one knows who I am, and I am totally fine with that. So anytime I have an opportunity to meet someone new or share with a new audience, I'm always incredibly grateful. So I spent most of my career in the basketball performance space, which meant my job was to help players improve their on-court athleticism, the way that they would move, their explosiveness, bulletproof their body against injury, but I also would help them improve their mindset. the ability to focus in on the present moment, to be able to move to the next play when something doesn't go the way they'd prefer. So I did everything except for the skill portion. And I was able to work at two internationally renowned high schools here in the Washington, D.C. area that have produced dozens of players currently in the NBA. The first school I worked at, our most notable alum is Kevin Durant. So I had a chance to work with KD for, when he was in high school. And then I worked at DeMatha Catholic High School, which has produced players like Victor Oladipo and Markelle Fultz. So the reason my journey has been rather unique is I got a chance to work with many of these future NBA stars back when they were first starting out, when they were still on the come up of climbing that mountain. And because I worked at two Nike elite schools, I got to do some contract work with Nike basketball, Jordan Brand, USA basketball. So then I got to get a peek of the other side of the curtain. And I got a chance to work events for guys like Kobe Bryant and Steph Curry and LeBron James and Steve Nash. And I got to see what guys who had already reached the mountaintop were doing to stay there and to sustain excellence. So I've seen both sides, what it takes to reach the top. And then what's actually even harder is what it takes to stay there for long periods of time. And I took all of that observation and knowledge and experience of working alongside and working for elite basketball players. And then in 2017, I decided to leave the basketball training space and focus on corporate keynote speaking and share with businesses, entrepreneurs, executives, sales professionals, how they can apply those exact same principles and disciplines to their lives. So I still feel very connected to the game of basketball, although I haven't done any training in that space in almost 8 years.
That's amazing, man. Just to see some of the people that you've had the opportunity to work with is mind blowing. And again, I think that's such a cool aspect of your story, seeing people before the come up and then after, and looking at the parallels between the two and what it takes to be on that trajectory. And I think that's going to be very relevant to today's conversation, is there's going to be a lot of new agents listening to this. And then there's going to be people that, have been crushing it, but are looking to unlock that next level. And we'll be able to kind of unpack those two different journeys. The first thing that I would love to ask is, I've talked about this time and time again, is when we're looking at people in real estate, some of the most incredible realtors end up coming from athletic backgrounds or from military backgrounds, looking at those habits, the discipline, the accountability. Like, what kind of parallels do you see between the people that you've worked with in the sports industry to the people that you've now been able to coach in the corporate kind of business entrepreneurial space?
Well, I love that you went in that direction, because these principles that I've noticed have such high utility that they don't have any boundaries. I mean, when I look at some of the top executives and corporate folks that I've worked with, they have the exact same traits as the best basketball players and coaches. And that list is probably around 10 to 12 of these traits. I'm going to highlight the top 3 that I've noticed, with every high performer I've ever been around. And I'll give you kind of a short version of each. And then if you want to pull on any threads and dive deeper, we can do that. But the first is actually the lesson that I learned firsthand from Kobe Bryant back in 2007. And that is, high performers and the best of the best, they never get bored with the basics. They have a strong respect and appreciation for the fundamentals. They understand that the fundamentals create the foundation to which everything else is built. And they work relentlessly, primarily during the unseen hours when no one is watching, to work towards mastery of their craft and get really good at those things. So number 1 is an appreciation and respect for the basics. So how that parlays to folks in the real estate world, if you're a real estate agent, you need to get crystal clear on what the fundamentals are of your business, of being able to sell, of being able to forge strong relationships, of being able to have, exceptional follow through. And you need to get crystal clear on what those are, and then work towards mastery of those relentlessly. So number 1 is a respect and appreciation for the basics. Number 2 is a masterful blend of confidence and humility. Confidence is earned through the work that we put in during the unseen hours. It's earned through demonstrated performance. It's earned by keeping the word that we give that we tell ourselves. It's earned by the little voice in our head. So confidence is something that's earned. And the highest performers I've ever been around are extremely confident. But what makes them really unique is they also remain humble. And being humble is what allows you to stay open to coaching. It's what allows you to be open to feedback. But most importantly, humility is what allows you to remember that no matter how good you get, you can still get better. I think that's one of many qualities that you have that is so endearing. I mean, unbelievably successful in so many capacities, but from the limited time I've known you, you still have that beginner's mindset, that student mindset. You still believe that no matter how successful you've been, and it's been off the charts, that you personally can still get better, that you're not resting on the success you had yesterday. You're proud of it, you're grateful for it, and you enjoy it as you should, but you know that your best years are still in front of you. So that's when the humility blended with confidence makes a big difference. And then lastly, the highest performers I've ever been around in basketball or business, they're crystal clear on their North Star of what they're trying to achieve, but they don't sit around wishing, hoping, and dreaming of it. They actually shift their focus to the process, to what's right in front of them. You know, if they say my goal is to sell 100 homes in 2024, they don't sit around worrying about the 100. They focus on what can I do today to inch me closer to selling house number one? You know, what can I do this quarter? What can I do this month? What can I do this week? What can I do today that gets me a little bit closer to my goal? And they understand and have the discipline to know that if every day they focus on incrementally, progressively, and systematically moving forward, then it's not a matter of if they'll hit their goal, it's going to be a matter of when. So they have a strong appreciation and respect for the process. And I'm telling you, everybody listening to this right now or watching this right now, if you can focus on those three things, it's an absolute game changer. Whether you're a brand new agent or you're a veteran of 30 years, those three things will be a difference maker.
Yeah, unbelievable, man. There's so much to unpack related to all of those. And you know, I'm excited to do so because this is so powerful. It reminds me of some of the takeaways from the book, 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class. Unbelievable book, and really kind of gives these perspectives in a consumable way. You know, I love that you brought up that aspect of confidence and humility, because I was recently asked a few months ago at an event I was speaking at, you know, Mike, how often do you deal with self-doubt? And my response was every single day. But I have the confidence that I know that, you know, based on my work ethic, I'm going to be able to figure something out and make it work no matter what. And I think that's where I think the agents who are struggling have this misconception that the ones that are doing well, everything just like turns to gold that they touch, and that they have this ego and things like that. But I'm very well aware that I could lose it all tomorrow, but I also have the confidence and the skill sets that I could build it back up in the next year. You know, do you want to kind of talk about those people that have, I hear this a lot, imposter syndrome, self-doubt. You know, you see this as people start to scale. You know, I talked to this woman yesterday who's going to be partnering with us, and she's like, you know, Mike, I don't even feel like I have the credibility to partner with your mastermind. You know, I only do 85 million a year in volume. And I'm like, do you realize that puts you in like the top 0.001% in the continent? Like, but there's that self-doubt, but she's so humble. What does that look like for agents that are maybe battling, or anybody battling self-doubt and that imposter syndrome?
Oh man, I love that we're going in this direction. So let's kind of unpack just confidence in general. I'm gonna tug on a few of the strings that I mentioned earlier. So number one, confidence does come from demonstrated performance. When we can see ourselves being competent in something, it increases our confidence. So take a basketball player, for example. You know, that's why a younger player, we prefer that they start in close to the basket. Like, get good at making layups and get good at making shots close to the basket before you go back and start heaving up three-pointers, because you need to see the ball go through the rim. You need to see, you know, the ability to slowly progress. So one of the things that's important for all of us is to continue to stretch and leave our comfort zone, but still make sure that we put ourselves in positions to be successful. You know, when I was first starting out in the corporate keynote speaking in 2017, while I had the ambition to be on giant stages in front of giant brands, I wasn't ready at that time. You know, I needed to earn my stripes and get reps speaking at smaller events for smaller companies. I mean, you know, I started my career giving free talks, doing lunch and learns for 15 people, you know, in a break room. But you need to do that, because once I could see that I could captivate those 15 people's attention during lunch, then I could slowly, incrementally earn my way onto bigger stages. So we need to put ourselves in that position. If you're a brand new real estate agent, the chance of someone hiring you to list their $10 million mansion is probably lower, but that doesn't mean that you won't get there. earn your stripes on, smaller condos and townhouses and homes that cost $150,000, and see yourself be able to over deliver in value. And then you will earn your way kind of up that ladder. So that's number one. So demonstrated performance. Confidence also comes, and our mutual friend Ed Milet talks about this a lot, in our ability to keep our word to ourselves. If I tell myself that tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up at 6 and go work out, if I wake up at 6 and I go work out, my confidence slowly increases because I kept that word to myself. If I wake up and I hit the snooze and I pull the covers over my head and I skip the workout, unconsciously my confidence starts to erode because I basically feel like I lied to myself. So we need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to set ambitious goals and have drive, but we need to work really hard to keep our word. And then the last part is, and this is really what you were speaking to when we talk about imposter syndrome or self-doubt, it's how we talk to ourselves. It's that little voice in our head. And for anyone right now going, I don't have a little voice in my head, it's the little voice that just said that to you. So yes, trust me, you do. And we need to talk to ourselves with the love and compassion and grace that we would talk to a good friend, or a sibling, or somebody that we truly care about. See, one of the mistakes a lot of people make is when they're feeling self-doubt or imposter syndrome, then they start to stack on the shame and the guilt. They start to become very critical and judgmental, and that actually weighs you down even further and makes it worse. When the best thing you can do is to say, yeah, I'm having a little hesitancy. I'm having a little self-doubt. I feel a little imposter syndrome. I don't know that I belong on this stage. And you know what? That's okay. This means I'm human. It's okay to have these feelings, because I do, like you just said perfectly, I believe in my ability to overcome this very natural tendency of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. So high performers, they don't let those feelings paralyze them. Instead, they allow themselves the space and grace to say, yeah, I'm human. I'm going to have some of these feelings, and I'm going to push through the discomfort anyway. And I'm going to earn my right to work through the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome. So we have to talk to ourselves in the manner that we would talk to a good friend. And, here's another example. I mean, when we spoke to those 1,000 Latin real estate agents in Miami, I mean, you absolutely crushed it. But let's just say for this hypothetical that you don't feel like you did very well, that it wasn't one of your best performances, and you stepped off stage and you shared that with me and said, Alan, I was really off my game. As your friend, I would have a safe space for you. I would say, hey man, I understand how that feels to be off your game. It doesn't feel good, but just know that I believe in you. I know how good you are, and I know that you're going to learn from this experience. Like I would be honest with you, but I would try and empower you. I would try and lift you up. The last thing I would do as a friend or as a coach would be to add extra criticism and judgment and make you feel worse. So why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we talk to ourselves in a manner that we wouldn't talk to someone else? Because I think we could both make a compelling argument that the most important things we ever say in this world are the things we say to ourselves. And if we're ever going to be kind and thoughtful and understanding to anyone in this world, we should be that way to us. And I don't want your listeners to think that I'm being soft, that I'm being woo-woo. I believe in holding ourselves to very high standards. And I want to hold myself to a very high standard of accountability, but I also want to be very kind to myself when I don't feel that I've been the best version of myself. And that's how we can push through that self-doubt and imposter syndrome.
I love that. There's so much, because I see this all the time is people, your thoughts become your beliefs. And so many people are creating these negative narratives that aren't even true. And they're just going down this downward spiral that, doesn't end up being the case in any way, shape or form, but they've convinced themselves that it is. And, one of the things, because I really want to touch on the other 2 points you mentioned in terms of your top 3, before getting there, I saw a post that you made talking about some of the negative comments that you've received on social media. And I've talked about this multiple times over. I've shared it on stage, and I think a lot of people are fearful to take action, especially on social media, which is what I talk about frequently, about receiving those negative comments. And that starts to, again, create that negative narrative in people's mind of, well, if I do this, then somebody might say that. For somebody that has also dealt with those situations, how do you manage those kind of feelings, those thoughts, and receiving those messages of negativity and channeling that? Because before I kind of wrap that point up, talking about that self-doubt and those other things, like you kind of alluded to, I feel like it's something that never goes away. Ed talks about still having it. All the people at the highest level, it never goes away. It just depends on how you decide to channel it and what you decide to do with it and manage it. And so I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts on the fear of the negativity that people are going to receive if they try to do something different or new.
Awesome. Well, as always, it starts with, it's okay to have that as a fear. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel a little bit insecure about how you might look or sound on camera or in a written post. So I have nothing but compassion for someone that is feeling those things. Now, the question is, you're at a fork in the road. And are you going to decide to side with the fear and choose not to even attempt? Or are you going to try to muster up the courage to kind of push through? And, I want to make this disclaimer that everything I share on stage, everything I share on page, everything I share through the video camera, I'm not coming from a place of mastery. Like, this is all stuff that I still struggle with, stuff I'm still working on, stuff I'm still challenged by. And one of the biggest areas that I'm proud of the improvement I've made, but I'm still not out of the woods yet, is being able to discern the difference between a truth and a story. The truth, something factual, and a narrative. And for me, getting crystal clear on what's true and what's simply somebody's opinion or perspective or a story has really helped with this. See, for me, I have to remind that if someone tries to roast me in the comments or they write something a little disparaging, I have to take a deep breath and remind myself that is not a truth. That is simply that person's perspective and opinion, and they're allowed to have it. See, I have thick enough skin to know that if I'm choosing to put some creative work out into the world, then I have to be open to someone criticizing that work or not liking that work. And I'm okay with that. It doesn't mean I have to agree with their assertion or agree with their opinion, but I don't have to take it as mine. I don't have to take it personally. And it's taken a long time to build up this kind of resilience to not feel that way. And, I'm not at a point yet where I could say, I don't care what other people think. I absolutely care what people think. It would be my preference that every post or video I put out in the world, everyone loves it, adores it, and praises it. That would be my preference. But I've also come to the point in my life where I realize I don't always get my preferences. There are going to be plenty of times in life that I don't get what I want or things don't unfold the way that I would prefer. So what I have to remind myself when someone puts something like that in the comments, the first thing I say is, this is not a truth. This is simply their opinion. The next thing I do is I ask myself, is there anything in what they're writing that could be valuable to me? Is this someone simply trying to hate and be critical, or are they actually saying something that I could use to get better? Because when someone cares enough to write something that is feedback that I could actually use for my improvement, that's actually a gift. So I don't want to lump everything as, oh, that person's just a hater. I want to be open to hearing some of that. And if it's something that can be disregarded, if it is someone that's just being hateful, I remind myself that speaks more of where they are at this moment and in their life than it does about me or my work. I think as human beings, we should all be able to acknowledge when we're frustrated, when we're in a low mood, when we haven't eaten, when we're tired, we're not usually the best versions of ourselves. I know for me, if I'm tired or I'm hungry, I get a little cranky. When I'm a little cranky, my patience goes down. I probably say and do things that aren't the best version of me. So I have to give people that exact same grace. So someone that writes something disparaging about one of my YouTube videos, I just have to remember that that's more about where they are right now. It's not necessarily my video that's bad. Maybe they're just in a low mood. Maybe they're upset. Maybe my video triggered something really deep inside of them that's causing them to feel that way. So my reaction to that is one of compassion. I actually feel bad for someone that takes the time to watch one of my videos, then takes even more time to write something hurtful or disparaging on it. Like, that's not the type of life I want to lead. So I feel bad for that person. I have compassion for them. So I definitely don't engage. I don't try to convince, I just learned to let those things go. And, to me, we don't want other people controlling how we choose to live our life. So if someone watching or listening to this, if you've decided that putting out value add content on social media is good for you and is good for your business, then don't let anyone deter you from that. Don't worry about necessarily what you look like or sound like. Have the courage to be your true self. And then if someone chooses to say something disparaging, just have high discernment in how you choose to handle that. And I know everything I just said is incredibly easy for me to say. None of this is easy to do. you better believe there's times where I'm in a low mood, I see a disparaging comment, and I curse a little bit under my breath because I'm so irritated that someone wrote that. But I now have the awareness to take a step back and go, okay, Alan, don't worry about it. That's where that person is right now. Is there anything they said that can be helpful? If not, disregard it. If so, be thankful that they gave me the gift of feedback that can allow me to get better.
That's so powerful. And I love that dynamic because you know, when you start looking at this with those negative comments, the whole aspect that you just talked about reframing the story of what it can mean is so powerful. And that story that we tell ourselves, but also that dynamic of, on one hand, being able to be humble enough to see, is there anything legitimate that can help me with this? Because I've received comments that first feel like a dagger to the heart, but then when I think about it and I unbiasedly go look at what they're saying, I'm like, well, damn, there's actually some truth to that. It sucks, but this is going to help me get better. And then there's other aspects, like you say, and this is the majority of the comments of, how pathetic of a life do you live if you get pleasure and enjoyment out of writing something negative on somebody else that's doing the work that you're probably jealous that you're not doing. And I think it's important for people to be able to see both sides of that. Now, coming back to point number one that you talked about, the basics.
Yeah.
This is so important. You know, Alex Hormozi talks about the fact that the ones that win are the ones that don't get bored at the basics, because the ones that lose are the ones that give up when the basics get boring and get difficult. And so this kind of goes to one of the things that you're incredible at, which is the concept of focus. I think right now, in this time where agents are distracted by social media, the narrative online, politics, everything going on in the economy, interest rates, like they're so distracted. You know, one of the things I did with our mastermind group last week is I said, does anybody here ever have the excuse that you don't have time? For example, recording social media or whatever. And they said, well, yes, I don't have time. And I said, okay, anybody have an iPhone? Yes. Pull up your iPhone, click on settings, click on screen time, and type your number in the chat. 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours a day. I just found you all the time that you need. The only difference between the ones that win and the ones that lose are how they decide to allocate their time. Because every single hour of the day, you know, you and I have a choice right now to be doing this conversation or watch Netflix or eat junk or take a nap, but we're deciding to do this. And I would love for you to kind of talk about any sort of approach people can use in order to stay focused, because that is the number one complaint I see agents falling victim to, is distractions and being able to manage those. Because as you talked about with self-doubt, they're inevitable, but how the heck do you manage it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think in addition to the ability to focus, what I like to do is reframe it as the ability to refocus, because once again, I've given myself the grace to realize that I'm not a Tibetan monk. There are going to be many times throughout the day where I admittedly lose focus. I'm distracted. My mind wanders. I'm not fully present. And I understand, again, that's part of the human condition. And it's absolutely part of the human condition in 2024, where we have these digital distractions that we're all bombarded by 24/7. So the first thing we need is the ability to refocus. And that will start with awareness. And for anyone watching or listening right now, if you are taking notes, write this down, highlight it, and underline it. And that is, awareness is always the first step to improvement in every area of our life, because you will never improve something you're unaware of, and you will never fix something that you're oblivious to. So the first step to improving our ability to focus is having an awareness of when we are unfocused. It's having a conscious awareness of, when is my mind wandering? When am I distracted? When am I spending an hour going down a YouTube or Facebook rabbit hole when I'm supposed to be finishing up a manuscript, or I'm supposed to be typing up an email proposal to a client? So we have to have an awareness. And then once we have an awareness, then we can start to slowly dial it back in. And the acronym that I use for what we should be focused on, I heard this from Lou Holtz, the Hall of Fame football coach at Notre Dame, and his acronym was WIN, W-I-N. And it stands for what's important now. I'm a big believer that at any given moment of any given day, each and every one of us should be able to take a deep breath and ask ourselves, am I choosing to place my attention in what I believe is most important in this moment? You know, and obviously you and I have established that right now, what's most important to us is having a conversation that we believe will be beneficial to your audience, which means we've also most likely set up in an environment where we've decreased the temptation for distraction. Like I just held up my phone, but my phone, the notifications are off. It can't make any sound. I don't have any other browsers opened up on my laptop right now. I don't have the TV going. I don't have anything going on except for being able to have a conversation with you. So part of it is my environment. I've created an environment that will decrease the chance that I'm going to have some distractions. So we have to have that awareness. And when we are able to be in the present moment and we can decide what's important right now, there's 3 things we can do to help continue to refocus that lens and recalibrate. The first is that we always learn to focus on the next play. We don't get too consumed by what just happened. We dial into what's happening right in front of us. In the game of basketball, if you turn the ball over, all right, next play. You miss a layup, okay, next play. The referee doesn't make a call, okay, next play. See, elite high-performing basketball players, they don't allow the play that just happened to negatively affect what's happening right in front of them now. So that's refocusing the lens on what's right in front of us. If you have several open houses or showings or meeting with prospective clients and the first couple don't go the way you'd prefer, are you going to drag that negative energy into your next meeting or your next open house? No, hopefully not. Hopefully you can kind of wipe the slate clean and move to that next play. The second thing we need to do, and this is one of the most important paradigms for all of us to live by, is we always need to discern what things do we have control over and what things do we not have control over. That list that you just mentioned earlier, while as valid and as real as it is, was a list of things we have no control over. We don't have any control over the economy, over interest rates, over the political landscape. We don't control that stuff. Now, it does have an effect on your business if you're in the real estate world. So I'm not saying that it's not important and I'm not saying that it's not valid. What I'm saying is you don't have any control over it. And it's been my experience that if we put the vast majority of our energy, our time, and our focus into the things we do control, we have more control over our destiny instead of worrying about the things that we don't have control over. And I'm of the belief there's only 2 things we have 100% control over 100% of the time. And that is our own effort and our own attitude. Now, part of effort and attitude is preparation. You are in control of how prepared you are for an open house. Effort and attitude also equate to enthusiasm. You're in charge of how enthusiastic you choose to be at a meeting or on a YouTube video, or again, at an open house or a showing of a home. So there's a lot of things we have control over. And it's been my experience that the more we focus on the things we do control, then the more we're kind of in charge of our own destiny. Again, interest rates, the political climate, economy, those things have an effect. But if we don't have any control over them, we're just spinning our wheels or being in quicksand if we're trying to worry about them. And then the last thing is we have to refocus the lens on the process, which I mentioned earlier. We know the goal is to say, sell a home. That's the goal. We're crystal clear on that. But let's refocus the lens on the process steps that will increase the chance that that will happen. So for those in the real estate world, come up with a list. What are the things that if you do these things regularly, you increase the chance that you'll actually sell the home? And that should be the goal. If using the example we said earlier, if you set the goal of selling 100 homes in 1 year, well, you have to sell home number 1 first. And then you have to sell home number 2. So don't worry about the 100. Focus on what are the basics that I need to focus on, the process steps to sell home number 1. And then as soon as that's been sold, then I move to the next play. What do I need to do now to sell home number 2? And when you can be very process oriented and learn to respect the work and the steps, then you're going to greatly increase your chance that those things will happen.
That's incredible, man. And one of the things that the concept really reminds me of in terms of you talking about the acronym of WIN is that book, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? Talking about the US rowing team and just looking at the fact that I do this consciously throughout the day now, where I'll take every 30 minutes or so, and I'll just stop, pause for a second, and say, is the activity right now getting me one step closer to the goal? And for anybody that might not know, and I'll link all the books that we referenced below, but that book talks about, the US team going to the Olympics, and, they don't have a shot in hell of actually doing placing in any way, shape, or form. And then the coach goes and tells all of the, the people on the team, throughout the day, ask yourself, with every activity that you're doing, will it make the boat go faster? Is what you're eating right now, is that going to make the boat go faster? Is the, way you're training right now with the intensity, will it make the boat go faster? And if you can audit that and get to the point where about 80% of the time you could say yes, they ended up winning. And I think it's that conscious effort to just, as you said, I love that your immediate response was not focus, but refocus, because I don't know a single person that just stays dialed and focused at all times. It's impossible. And that just bringing yourself back, but finding a way to say, I can bring myself back after 30 minutes, not 3 hours or 3 days, is where the game is won, right?
Absolutely. Well, can I add one thing to what you just said? Because what you just said was gold, and I hope everybody hits rewind and listens to that a couple more times and takes notes. But I want to make sure that someone doesn't misconstrue what we're saying to think that we're saying that you need to work 18 hours a day and that every single thing you do in your life has to acutely move the boat forward. Because one of the things that's important, I believe in taking a holistic approach. I'm a huge believer in self-care, in our health and fitness and mental well-being. I'm a huge believer in developing solid relationships. And those things take our time and attention as well. So everything you do doesn't have to be directly related to selling the next home. Having strong, fruitful friendships and relationships, eating healthy foods and making time to go work out, doing things for your mental health and well-being, whether it's, prayer or meditation, those things will actually make you a more well-rounded human being that will give you the potential to sell more homes. Because you will increase your energy level and your ability to focus if you eat healthy foods and you move your body. If you are in a better mood and you feel more secure in life because you have wonderful friendships and relationships, that will also increase your confidence to be able to sell more homes. So taking an hour out of your day to listen to a podcast or to hop on the Peloton bike, at face value, doesn't appear that that's going to help you sell more homes, but it absolutely will over time, because what you're doing is you're creating a foundation of being the best version of yourself. So if you have worked, you've worked a lot of hours during the day, you've spent some time with your children's or your spouse, you've done these things, and for the last hour of the day, you choose to binge watch a couple of shows on Netflix. I don't want you to feel guilty for doing that. Yeah. That's okay. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be a world-class realtor because you've chosen to take an hour to unwind and relax, because the ability to unwind and relax is what will restore your battery so that the next day you can actually, get back after it. So I just want to make sure folks know that we're not preaching more is better, and we're not preaching that you have to be working 24/7. We need to live well-rounded, healthy lives and address all of the pillars of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness in order to be the best version of ourselves, which then will allow us to absolutely sell more homes.
I'm so glad that you took it this direction, because, the mastermind that we launched, Atlas Alliance, which is what we'll be talking about with the live event, it's predicated on multiple factors, the 5 factors of family, finance, fitness, fulfillment, faith. And, that's our entire year-long, kind of trajectory with this mastermind is touching on all of those, because, I know so many people, and I'm sure you do too, that are making boatloads of money, but the relationships are in shambles and they're overweight, or people that, are in great shape, but they're broke as a joke, and they've got toxic people in their life. Like, looking at that holistic approach is so important. And a lot of people are thinking, and I fell victim to this in the worst of ways in the first 4 or 5 years of business, where I was a bulldozer in business. And yes, I built momentum and saw success, but I affected and ruined a lot of relationships. I let my health, and I'm sure you're this way too, my physique and my health is always a direct reflection of my overall life. And my coaches, because I bring in a new coach every single year just based on where I'm at in my business and my life, every single one of them can tell immediately if my business is going wrong, if my family's not dialed in, if my fulfillment and finances and all of these things are going sideways. Everything can be told by how the shape that I'm in. So I really, really love that you talked about that holistic approach, because too many people burn bridges where the point that when you get to that point, like you're talking about, you can rebuild the finances up no matter what, whether the whole world comes crashing down. But those friendships, those relationships, that time with your family is something that isn't as easy to rebuild. So I think
Oh,
it's really, really important to focus on that. Now, you know, the next aspect of this, going to point number 3, I really love that you talk about that concept of, I want to do 100 homes. And oftentimes I hear one of 3 things. New agents saying they want to do 24 deals, average agents saying they want to do 50, top agents saying they want to do 100. And it's kind of that concept of the movable middle where, you know, if you're standing on the 1 yard line, you can't see the end zone on the other side, but you can see the 10. And if we can get you to 10, you can see 20. And then suddenly you get to the half mark and you can see the finish line. I see so many people that get caught up in the fact, you know, we're days away from the new year, right? And, you know, so many people are setting their goals and saying, well, I want to do those 24 deals as a brand new agent or the 100 deals as an experienced agent. And they get so overwhelmed with, well, I haven't even done one. How am I going to do 24? And they're trying to consume it all at once. And, you know, that's why I personally operate on the 12-week year of looking at things in quarters. Do you have any recommendations for people of how to stay focused on that next one and what they can do mentally to just say, I've got these big goals, I'm confident I can hit them, but I need to just channel my effort on that next one?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, there's 2 stories that come to mind. First, and some of your viewers and listeners may be familiar with a gentleman named Jesse Itzler.
Yeah.
Jesse's a kind of a world-class entrepreneur, has bought and sold multi-million-dollar companies. His wife is Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. You know, they make quite the power couple. And Jesse and Sarah have a second home up in New Fairfield, Connecticut. And in the back of that home, they have a huge patch of grass that's about 80 yards long, so almost the size of a football field, and it's at a 40% grade, so it's a long, steep hill. And he started this maybe a decade ago, but he created this event called Hell on the Hill, where he would gather a group of people up in the heat of July, and the goal was for everyone to go up and down this hill 100 times. And
Wow.
you know, I'm not an endurance athlete. I identify more with kind of a short burst basketball type of athletic background. So I can attest to how hard something like that is. And one of the first years that he did it, I had an opportunity to go up and do that event. And I mean, it was really, really challenging. And a good friend of mine, his name's Steve Wojciechowski. You know, he's a Duke basketball legend. He's just unbelievable guy. And he and I were both doing this Hell on the Hill at about the same pace. And I remember for me personally, when I got to around, you know, number 70, I started to hit a wall, a mental and a physical wall. I could feel kind of blisters forming under my toes. My knees and my back were throbbing. I know this sounds disgusting, but I had like some chafing going on my inner thighs. Like I was completely spent. And I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to finish the next 30 reps. And I had a feeling Steve was kind of on the same pace that I was, but I didn't know for sure. So I asked him how many he had left, and he smiled, which I found kind of funny that here I am in misery and this guy's smiling. And he said, I've only got 1 rep. And I was like, there's no way you're at number 99. He's like, no, I've only got 1 rep, because the only thing he was focused on was the next rep. He wasn't worried about the 100. All he was focusing on was getting up and down the hill one more time. You know, he wasn't focusing on the physical and the mental discomfort. He wasn't giving that any more power than it needed to have. He definitely wasn't getting worried about whether or not he could complete 100. All he had to do was focus on getting up and down the hill just one more time. And then when he did that, then he just had to focus on getting up and down the hill one more time. And if you start to stack enough one more times, eventually you'll reach your goal. So it's the same thing. Don't worry about the 24 or the 50 or the 100. Just focus on the one that's right in front of you. Now, the best way to do that leads me to the second story, which is kind of a basketball analogy. And we all know that in basketball, a finite game, that the winner is the team that has the most points on the scoreboard when the final buzzer goes off. Like there's nothing ambiguous about that. Like we understand that. However, elite programs and elite teams and coaches don't worry so much about the final scoreboard. They focus much more on the process that will lead them there. So there was a team down in Charlotte, North Carolina, the Queens University men's basketball team, which when I had a chance to work with their coaching staff was one of the top Division II teams in the United States, a great program. And their coach figured out after watching a decade's worth of film that there were 4 key stats that heavily dictated whether Queens would have the most points on the scoreboard at the end of the game. For any of your viewers and listeners that like basketball, these things will be obvious. If not, I'll try to make them obvious. The first stat was turnover differential. If we can have more possessions than our opponent, it gives us a better chance to win. Number 2 was offensive rebound differential. If we can take more shots than our opponent, it gives us a better chance to win. Number 3 were free throws attempted. In college basketball, the free throw is the highest percentage shot based on each possession. And if we can take more of those than our opponent, it gives us a better chance to win. And number 4 were three-pointers attempted. The three-pointer in college basketball is a massive weapon. And if we can take more clean looks from 3 than our opponent, it gives us a better chance to win. Well, when Queens University would come out on top in those 4 statistical categories, they won 97% of their games. Wow. Which means they were statistically and mathematically almost unbeatable if they just did those 4 things. Now, the reason I bring that up is those are the only 4 things that the coaching staff would talk about, would emphasize, and would reinforce. See, Coach Lundy and his staff, they never talked about winning. They never talked about championships. They never talked about trophies or banners. All they talked about were those 4 things because they knew if their team could execute those 4 things, the scoreboard would take care of itself. So they didn't have to worry about the scoreboard. So my question is to all the realtors out there, what are your handful of things? It doesn't have to be 4, but what are the things that if you do those things consistently, you increase the chance that you'll sell a home? And start focusing on those things instead of the 24, the 50, or the 100. Those things will take care of themselves. If you focus on the process and the steps, the scoreboard will always take care of itself. And it's having that discipline to just focus on the next one, getting up and down the hill one more time, and just focusing on the handful of things that move the needle, and the scoreboard will take care of itself. And if you are a newer agent and you're a little unclear on what those 4 things need to be, or what then ask a more experienced agent. Talk to someone that has blazed the path that you're looking to blaze. Talk to someone that sells 150 homes a year if you're looking to sell 100. And be very open-minded. Keep your eyes and your ears open to hear what are the fundamentals and the process steps that they focus on, and then work on those relentlessly. And if you can, as Alex Hermosi said, if you can not get bored with doing those basics, you're in complete control of your destiny and your ability to achieve any goal.
That is truly unbelievable. I love that you talk about, focusing on the process, because this is something I'm a huge advocate for. And as I map out my goals for 2024 and look at this lofty one that I have, I know that if I do the work will take care of everything else. And I think so many people are focused on the destination and not enough focused on just relentlessly pursuing the fundamentals that will get them there. And yeah. I love that you really took it in that direction.
Can I add one thing to that? Because it's so important. I love that you just said that. There's 2 things. One, and I love that one of your 5 F's is fulfillment. And it's been my experience that one of the keys to fulfillment is learning how to not only be fulfilled by reaching the outcomes and the goals, but by actually learning to love the work. Learn to love the process. If you learn to love the work, if you learn to love the unseen hours, if you learn to love open houses, you learn to love researching stuff on Zillow, then you've already won in advance. You're living a life doing what it is that you love, then the outcomes just become a byproduct of that. The outcomes just become the cherry on top of the sundae. See, if you only live for hitting those exact goals and outcomes, then life becomes a roller coaster, because none of us hit every goal that we set unless you're setting your goals incredibly low. So I'll even use a first person example. So my core business is as a corporate keynote speaker. And I set a very ambitious revenue goal for 2023. And I'm not ashamed to say that I fell 15% short of hitting my revenue goal. But what I can say with a huge smile and a tremendous amount of pride, I doubled my revenue from last year. And last year was the best year that I've ever had. So on one hand, I fell 15% short of a goal that I set. But on another hand, I had my best year by 100% ever. So I knew that I set an appropriate goal. and now I'll kind of recalibrate and reset a new goal for 2024. But there's no shame in falling a little bit short. I mean, if someone sets their goal for 100 homes and they sell 97 homes, I don't want you to focus on the 3 that you fell short on. I want you to have a sense of pride and confidence for the 97 that you did sell, especially if that's more than you sold the year prior. So I think we should all continue to aim really high, but don't let our confidence, our self-worth, and definitely don't let our fulfillment hinge on whether or not we always hit every single goal. It is okay and it is noble in the attempt to try, and falling short is nothing to be, shameful about.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. Because, even looking at my own example, this year I wanted to end the year with 100,000 subscribers, and I'm going to end with 92, 93. And, it's one of those things that I couldn't care less, because for me, when I started YouTube, it was one of those things that said, eventually I'm going to get to 100,000. I don't care if it's in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. My focus is being able to look back at the end of every year and say my videos improved, they look better, I'm better at communicating, and I had more fun while doing it. Yes. And so even though I fell short on the kind of vanity metric that I set out, I grew so much in terms of how I deliver, to the point where I know next year it's not even a question. And I think it's really important because, as you alluded to, people can beat themselves up after not hitting the tangible goal, but they completely skip over the intangible progress that they made in terms of the skills, the habits, the discipline, and all of these other things that are equally as valuable. It might not just be tangible, right? So I love that you unpack that. As we start to bring this full circle, I'd really love to know 2 separate things. And that is the difference you see in the habits, the standards of somebody, as you alluded to. You worked with people that were coming out of high school and college. You worked with people that were, some of the best in the entire industry. What are some of the differences you see between, let's say I'm a new agent or I'm a high school basketball player. What are some of the habits, the skills, and the disciplines that somebody that needs at that point? And then maybe I'm a seasoned vet in the industry. What do I need to focus on at that point? What are kind of the differences between the two in terms of what you've seen in your experience?
Well, for those that are kind of on the come up, 2 things jump out immediately. And you mentioned one of them is habits. As you're climbing that proverbial mountain, you want to try to align as many of your habits as possible with the goal that you're trying to achieve. And I know that sounds like common sense, but so many people out there right now do things that they consciously know sabotage and undermine their ability to get where they're trying to go. It's like they're trying to chase something and they're dragging an anvil around. And it's like, all right, well, that's making this way harder. So we need to make sure that our beliefs and our behaviors are in alignment. So if you believe that you deserve the ability to sell 100 homes, but your habits are not congruent with that, well, then you've got a problem, and you're going to have to actually make some type of choice. Either need to change your habits or you need to lower your goal. I mean, one of those 2 things has to happen. And this is not about perfection. One of the most important things I want folks to walk away from our conversation with is perfection is not an attainable ideal. Throw perfection out the window. We should all be heavily inspired and motivated by incremental progress. Are you moving in the right direction? So don't worry about where you are at this moment. Focus more on the direction that you're headed. Because also keep in mind that it's relative. And that's why we all have to be very careful playing the comparison game. Even look, my YouTube channel, I'm about to hit 6,000 subscribers. So, I'm a minuscule of what you've been able to achieve. But you know what? The growth I've had this last year has been phenomenal for my channel. So I'm proud of that. And I can aspire to have the same level of YouTube mastery as someone like yourself or someone else out there. But at the same time, I can still be proud of what it was that I was able to achieve in that growth. So we got to go back to habits, and we need to make sure that the things we do consistently, while they might not all be perfect, most of them are in alignment with where we're trying to go. And then the second part is mindset, which I know is kind of the overarching red thread that ties all of this together. And I'm a big believer that when you're on the come up, the most important mindset to have is to make a commitment to do the best you can with what you have wherever you are. Yeah. That's it. Do the best you can with what you have wherever you are. And the reason I love this as an operating system, and one that I still use to this day, is it automatically eliminates a trilogy of behaviors that will undermine your ability to reach that mountaintop. and that's blaming, complaining, and making excuses. As easy as those things are to do, and as the temptation is everywhere to blame, complain, and make excuses, that'll do nothing to improve your chances of moving forward or achieving what you're trying to achieve. So the sooner you can reduce the temptation to blame, complain, and make excuses, and have an attitude of extreme ownership, that's when you'll be emotionally agile. And what I like to say is, if you're not emotionally agile, then you're emotionally fragile. And if you're emotionally fragile, there's no way you're going to be able to achieve the things that you're trying to achieve. So we have to have that resilient mindset. Now that's two things that we need to do as we're climbing the mountain. Once we've kind of reached the proverbial mountaintop, and this is all hypothetical, because to be honest, I don't think I'm ever going to reach the mountaintop. I know on some level I'm always going to be on the climb. But I do know that I've reached certain levels in parts of my life that I want to maintain a high level of excellence in those. And it's been my experience that there's three things that undermine someone's ability to stay at the top or to stay performing well. And that is inability to deal with stress, stagnation, and burnout. If we don't have systems in place or mindset in place to allow us to deal with the day-to-day stresses, then we're at risk. If we allow ourselves to put on the cruise control and flatline and be stagnant, we're at risk. And if we work to a point that we feel completely burnt out and depleted from the work we're doing, then we're really in trouble. So if you can put things in place to help reduce and manage stress, stagnation, and burnout, then you've given yourself the best chance to continue to have a fulfilled and successful, high-performing life.
Unbelievable, man. This is truly what I believe is one of the most, or probably the most valuable conversation I've ever had on my channel. And I'm so excited that anybody at any point in their journey is going to be able to take a life-changing message from this conversation. And I want to kind of pull it together and allow people to learn more by going and checking out your YouTube channel. So, I kind of want to end this with, where can people find you? What can people do to kind of immerse themselves in your environment, learn a bit more from you, and, take all these incredible lessons and go a little bit deeper?
Well, I appreciate this. This was such a fun conversation and an absolute blast for me. As you know, and I've told you, I would love to do more stuff in the real estate space, in that vertical, because everything that you share and everything that you teach is in perfect harmony and alignment with what it is that I teach. And I think that these principles that you and I have talked about today, they really hit that target in that epicenter in the real estate space. So first and foremost, the main hub of everything I do is just at allensteinjr.com. So if anybody listening to this, if you have, you put on real estate events or you do things in the real estate space and you think Mike and I can add value to that, we would love to have an opportunity to do that. So anything from my speaking standpoint is at allensteinjr.com. I am very accessible and very responsive on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I guess we're calling it X now, but formerly known as Twitter. Is just at Alan Stein Jr. And my YouTube channel is /Alan Stein Jr. If any part of this conversation resonated, if someone has a question, if someone wants to share a story, just shoot me a DM on Instagram or on LinkedIn. I'm really good about getting back to people. And then lastly, I do have two books, Raise Your Game, High Performance Secrets from the Best of the Best, and Sustain Your Game, High Performance Keys to Manage Stress, Avoid Stagnation, and Beat Burnout. You can get those at any major book retailer, Amazon, Audible, or wherever you like to get your books and audiobooks. But, as I'm hoping you've sensed from our energy, Mike and I love these types of conversations. We love being of service. We love sharing the things that have worked and have not worked well in our lives for your benefit. So if there's ever anything we can do to help, I would love to share another stage with you, my friend.
Unbelievable, man. Again, guys, I'm going to link all of Alan's incredible content below, as well as the direct links for Amazon.com and .ca, whether you're in the States or Canada, so you can go get those because they're going to be life-changing. And again, that's a great way to finish this off, is that little teaser that next year you and I will be sharing the stage again amongst some of the other biggest entrepreneurs in the world at our own private event. So I can't wait. Again, Alan, thank you so much for sharing your messages. Thank you for leading by example, for pouring into the industry, for everybody that you come across. And I'll never forget the day that we met, because I came away, I told so many people, you have no idea, this guy that I just met, your energy is infectious, and I just love the mission that you're on. So again, brother, thank you so much for everything.
That feeling is mutual. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks so much again for watching. As always, make sure to get all of Alan's content, consume it on a daily and weekly basis, and we'll see you guys in the next video.